Hi everyone, Jason here from spiritualbabies.net. We're joined again with Rod Bryant of Nativ.net, and we're going to carry on going through the Ger and the Tanakh. Welcome back. So we're back, Rod, after the holiday season.
Yes, we're back in all of our glory and glamour and tiredness. The high holy days are exhilarating, elevating, and exhausting all at the same time. I'm glad we're here on the back end of this. We're getting ready to go into looking at more ger or gerim in the Tanakh, and actually, the more I study into it and look into it, the more you find. So this is by no means an exhaustive list, but here are the obvious ones. So that's where we'll go. So which one do you want to start with first?
Why don't we start with Ruth? Because I think from my tradition, Ruth is one of the few women who are held in extremely high honor from what we'd call the Old Testament if you're a Christian.
Mhm.
For a number of really obvious reasons. Because she's the
Grandmother.
she's the grandmother, and she's the portrait girl for being grafted in.
Right. Right.
And so I wanted to talk about her a little bit, just to highlight some areas of the story which don't really gel very well with that idea of being grafted in.
Ruth is an interesting woman, a Moabite. She was married. Her husband. I mean, she was actually sort of in the family of her mother-in-law. And once the husbands had died, the mother-in-law returns. She says, "Why don't you just go back to your people?" She says, "Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." And really, that was the only sort of test for the ger. And later, this idea of, in normative Orthodox Judaism, they say that Ruth became a convert, right? Because she was a stranger in a strange land. But conversion in those days obviously do not carry the same connotation as conversion these days, right? Now it's a very rigorous test of one's knowledge and abilities, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes I wonder if the rigorous nature of the test may make it impossible for people to really want to be grafted or attach themselves to Hashem and the Torah. So Ruth very much felt like a lot of individuals, like you and I, who come out of what we call the Goyish world, of the non-Jewish, non-Jewish Gentile world, and see the necessity of attaching ourselves to not only the creator of the universe and his Torah, but also his people.
And that the joining themselves to the people is the thing that I really take away from this. We have got that fantastic passage in the first chapter of Ruth where she makes that declaration to Naomi, her mother-in-law. It says, "Don't send me away. I'm going to go where you go. Your people will be my people." But she follows through on that. It's not enough just to say it to one person. She goes, as people often say to me, "Well, Ruth did it. Why do I have to do anything else?" And that's fine if you do what Ruth did. Ruth went to a people, she lived with the people, she worked with the people, she ate with them, slept under the same roofs and her breaks. And because of that, she was accepted into the culture and into that community. And she became Ruth of that community, not the outsider. And a lot of people, when they read through the story, they kind of skip the part where she's out in the field for 13 hours. And looking after the elderly in her community, and it is so good that her actions are noticed. They're above and beyond what people expect.
So in reality, Boaz became sort of a based-in.
Right.
Right? I mean, think about it for a second.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, he observed her and he liked what he saw. He saw that she was working hard. Her name preceded herself. I guarantee you that if she said, "I want your people to be my people, your God, my God," she came into the community, bringing her idolatry, bringing in her, pagan ways. There's no way that she would have been accepted. No way.
And we have to remember too that she was an outsider in a community, but she still had to adhere to those rules. Boaz couldn't just marry her. Even part of that marriage was because of the clause in Deuteronomy about the redeeming kinsman, which is what Naomi was headed for. She was like, Boaz, a totally dig Ruth. This might be something that could help me a lot. But even under that rule, Boaz still knew that there were other things that he had to look into with the person that could possibly be a closer link. So she's still subject to the rules of the community.
Right.
And as a ger who's living with the Torah as their umbrella, you have to understand that you don't get to pick and choose from that umbrella. If you're living with people that uphold everything, which you should be trying to do one way or another, even if that's virtually. But I think there's a lot going on with Ruth.
There is. Let me throw something out about that same subject before we move away from that particular subject of the nuances of Ruth's relationship with the Jewish community or Israelite community. I like this phrase. I didn't coin it, but a guy by the name of Douglas Adams, not the author, but the guy who has a Nativ Center in North Dallas. Douglas says you need to know the house rules. And if you're a non-Jew going to be in Jewish community, you're going to be welcomed if you are truly a Noahide/Ger. I mean, you're going to be welcome, but you need to know the house rules. You need to know how things operate. Just number one, so you don't stand out and look odd, but the most important thing, so that you do not interrupt the observance of those people that are around you in the Jewish community. It's very important.
Yeah, look at it like gears on a bicycle, right? You have to make sure you're moving to the right gear at the right speed, otherwise the whole thing crunches up. It slows you down.
Throw your chain off the sprocket.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It slows you down. It slows everybody else down. So there's Ruth, but Ruth has a descendant in David, who also has another progenitor who's a female ger, and that's Rahab. I think Rahab gets a lot of bad press.
Oh, absolutely. she's a woman of the night, and that's the best thing that you can hear about her. But it is interesting. I'll quote Rabbi Chaim Korfing, who said to me the other day, he says, if you want to find the ger in the Tanakh, look at how everybody speaks about them. Okay? Not in a praiseworthy manner, but in a negative manner. For example, Terach, right? Abraham's father. What's the chief thing that everyone says about Terach?
It's the idol manufacturer.
Yeah, he made idols. I mean, not only was an idolater, but he made idols. That's even worse, right? But in reality, it was Terach that said to Abraham, maybe you should go to Canaan. So you have to understand that even though Terach was, 70 years old or whatever when Abraham was born, you mean to tell me that 50 years of a monotheist living in your household doesn't have an influence on you? That idol building stuff was something when Abraham was a little boy, was a young man, right? I can guarantee you that this guy was already a ger. Why? Because he was living in proximity with Abraham. They lived in the same town. So it is interesting observation. Let's give those who are watching right now a little bit of background where she comes from. What story she's in.
Yeah, what we know is that Rahab had some sort of guest house, and that she lived within so Jericho.
Yeah, we'll call it a guest house. Yeah,
we'll call it a guest house, right? She had many different guests. So Jericho had several walls, at least two that we know of, and it was built up a hill, and there was an outer wall and an inner wall, and most of the time those were filled with just shrapnel and pieces of rock. But sometimes if you were clever enough and smart enough but poor, you'd live in between these two walls. You were the first person to get killed in an attack, but you always had a good view of when the attack was coming. It's kind of interesting.
You had a room with a view.
That's right, yeah. So we find that that spies have been sent out into the land. They go to Jericho. They come across Rahab. Rahab, fearful of her life, says, I can give you information and I'll hide you from these guards, but can you make sure when you come back, you'll save me and my family. So what's interesting there is that she understood who the Israelites were. She trusted that they'd keep their word. She trusted that their God was going to cause them to be the winners. And on the other side of that, her promise was accepted and held by people. So they were They looked at this woman who possibly was a prostitute. At the very least, she garnered information for comfort. And they held that word as a bond, and they were true to it, regardless of her station and the fact that she was female. She wasn't of their clan, and she did something which was, you know what? I can't even say it was uncomfortable for Israel, because there's plenty of times in Israel's history where things like temple prostitutes are visited. But she didn't have a job that you'd go home and say, "Hey, Mum, I met this amazing woman."
Right? No, you don't do that. If anything, a lot of stuff has to transpire before you can say, "You remember this woman?" Because once again, before, and there's a hint within midrashic material that Joshua married her. So this idea, though, she had to come into community. She had to live as a righteous woman and a clean woman. And with that being said, means that she is truly a ger, truly a ger. Now, mind you, once again, in this situation, Orthodox rabbinical view today of a ger is a convert, right? But in essence, one who is a convert, but one who begins to take on more than the Sheva Mitzvot, and one who takes on Torah and loves Hashem and loves the people of God, of course.
I wonder if, because you'll often read that a convert is somebody who's decided to convert, not necessarily someone that's finished.
Right.
And
right.
We don't transfer that onto. We sometimes think, well, I haven't been to the rabbi and I haven't arranged that there's a date that I'm going to start, but I'm definitely going to. We don't consider that the choice to convert, but it is. If you know you will, you're just looking for a way to do it. For me, anyway, I've chose to convert. I just haven't found a path to that conversion yet.
And I believe that you are one of many thousands of people that are like that. They're not even near a Jewish community. I mean, how about those that I'm in correspondence with in other countries? We just won't even say where. Who, being former Muslim, Islamic, takes on the Torah with a Jewish concept in their mind and completely has to live a very secret lifestyle in their love for God and the study of Torah. Is that person any less of a ger than you are? See, I mean, we really, that's our whole reason for doing this show together with this subject matter is we're trying to elevate the individual who might feel a bit disconnected from the Jewish world, just in proximity and geography. We want you to know that in the eyes of the Creator, you're very much connected. You are a part of His people.
And if you can't find that connection in your flesh and blood world, then get on the internet, find Rob, find myself. The Facebook is full of amazing groups, and these aren't people who... we answer questions if you contact us. It's not like we just make these programs and then ignore everybody. We've got plenty of stuff to fill our time.
Absolutely. I mentioned to my wife yesterday, I had so many text and emails from the high holy days because Shabbos is back to back that I just couldn't get caught up. I still haven't got caught up. And we want you to know that if we don't respond immediately, it's not because we don't want to. I would love to be able to do it, but when you're a one-man band, that's what happens.
Right, so that's it, everyone. Thanks very much. We'll see you all again next week.